Hello everyone and welcome back, and today is a very special day because I can finally talk to you about Total War Warhammer 40,000. I was invited alongside some other creators to play the brand new title, so what you're going to be seeing on screen is all my gameplay, which will be very obvious when you see me on the army painter. But yeah, there's 3 scenarios here. There is a brand spanking new tutorial. This is going to teach you how to play Total War Warhammer 40,000, which we're just going to call Total War 40k from now on because it's just going to be easier. Then there's a little bit of a taste of the campaign. So yeah, I guess this is a world premiere of the campaign, how to play it. It's going to be quite small, keep that in mind, but the idea here is just to show you a taste as this game is still in active development. And then finally there is a big battle. So I'm going to have timestamps down in the description below because there's a lot to discuss, and then there's going to be multiple follow-up videos, I do believe. There's going to be quite a lot. I'm quite excited about this as, well, you guys know I've been working on a Space Marine army for quite some time now, and I've been jumping back into 40k, actually, painting up some Red Corsairs. But most importantly, this is the first title for Total War in the brand new engine Warcore. We've been in desperate need of a new engine for quite some time now. And as a caveat, as per usual, I was only able to play with the Space Marines, but there are 4 launch factions. Honestly, can't wait to see some stuff on the Eldar, but until then, let's jump right in. So we'll start off and learn the basics. This is a introduction to Total War 40k. Grave Assembly have confirmed that there is going to be a tutorial, so we've had something like that with Warhammer 3 and the LUSC God. That's a very good way for new people to get into the setting, because this is obviously something very drastically different to what we're already used to. It does seem like there's going to be multiple tutorials, because here you can select for the Space Marines. I'm not too sure what their intention is, but it is a pretty good intro on how Total War mechanics work and how everything else is going to work with the new systems involved. As obviously here you're going to be focusing quite a lot on range firepower, multiple units having different types of weapons, and all the rest. Now there are cinematics involved, so I will label them in case you want to avoid them, but we'll continue straight after that one.
The galaxy burns. There is no peace amongst the stars. They flicker like a million candles holding back the night. Some will falter, some will fade. A few will linger on, their worlds worthy of protection. The Emperor's left hand sends for his angels. Courageous, dutiful, but ignorant of the trials to come. A journey is required. These warriors must seek the light before they can safeguard it. For if they fail, the candle they hope to shield, and many others, will be extinguished.
Cogitation protocols initializing. Nodal link established. Fleet modules online. Synchronizing crew data of the Emperor's Torch.
What is our status, Fernand?
Captain Halsor has made planetfall and awaits our arrival on Umbral Prime.
Very well. Commence mission protocols.
Cogitating. Decrypting mission objectives. Ident seals verified. An inquisitorial petition for aid. Operation Illumination. An inquisitorial vessel named the Sagacity has been lost, presumed crashed. It was transporting cargo of extreme importance to the Imperium.
What cargo?
Data has been redacted. It must be recovered at all costs. Arrival imminent, Lord.
Prepare for real space re-entry.
Real space translation complete. Ship systems operating within acceptable efficiency parameters. Thank the machine god. Entering orbit of Umbral Prime. Establishing box link with our strike detachment.
So in this tutorial, you get a little bit of campaign action. This is very much like the Lost God, where you're going to have to do just some specific things and just get used to moving around in campaign, because obviously the world's spherical now, but the base Total War experience remains the same. You're still ending turn, you're still waiting for your enemies to do something. I imagine that enemy armies will still try to ambush you, and if we see agents on the field, that might be a thing too. I've yet to see anything right now. Now keep in mind that this is, of course, a developer build very early, so I don't have unrestricted access to the campaign. That's fine because it's an intro. So you've got a small strike force of intercessors and you're going to be pushing your way down into dealing with some orcs. This definitely still feels like Total War, which I think is super important. I was kind of worried that this might just start to feel quite alien. No pun intended, of course. But as it stands, the mission is just go and fight some orcs. It says destroy all enemies as annihilation. I'm not sure if there's going to be different mission types, which there very well could be if they're going to follow quite a bit of the tabletop, especially as it does seem like they're going to. You know, we're in Armageddon. This is where the edition is too. They're clearly working very closely with Games Workshop with regards to this title. Now, there are some base cinematics and stuff, and I want to stress out that, yeah, there can be some audio or maybe some visual issues. This is an alpha build, and I'm saying that because there is going to be a small cinematic when my troops land, and they're going to be missing their bolters. It happens. Believe me, I can tell you from experience with other games or even DLCs where stuff is missing, textures are broken, or voice lines are pretty much just Microsoft Sam. So this is the very basic stuff. I don't think we need to talk about this too much because it's literally just introducing you to the basis of Total War, how the mechanics work on PC, because this is on PC. I'm not sure if anyone was playing on console. I don't think so, because this was all done on a Creative Assembly computer. But from what I can experience, this is a Total War game. Even with all the changes, even with the push to more cover fire and the rest, very basic intro, but it still feels like Total War. I was worried that this was going to be Company of Heroes or Dawn of War style. No, your units are still loads of entities, obviously less for the Space Marines because, you know, intercessor squads are much smaller, but you get loads and loads of orcs, loads of Gretchens on the field. That's so important. So it just shows that we're going to get different unit sizes depending on the style that you're using. I don't know if there's any unit size differences, so I don't know if there's scaling like we have in Warhammer Fantasy, but that's something that we have to see in the future. What I will note so far is the units look a little bit worse when far away. I'm not sure if that's an optimization thing, as they've done this for consoles too, but they look much better and very, very stylized up close. There's going to be a few shots of that once we start getting into the nitty-gritty of this. As an intro, this works out quite well. It literally teaches you how to move your units, cover fire, flanking, and then summoning with units and reinforcements and the rest, but don't you worry, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Now, it definitely is going to get some getting used to with the stat changes, you know, how everything works, because it's like light damage, medium damage, heavy damage, and all the rest. Very different to what we've had in the past for unit cards. But it is styled for 40k. My only issue so far is I still do not like where the minimap is. That's literally been my bugbear since the announcement of this title. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to have to get used to the new UI because it's very, very different, but everything still seems the same. You can also go all the way up to ×4 speed, which is wonderful because at certain points, I imagine in campaign we're still going to be able to doomstack. I don't think that Creative Assembly will take away that ability because, I mean, that's one of the biggest foundations of Total War. Now, again, troops, really, really fun. I like getting really up close to the Space Marines. They look super cool. I mean, it's a shame that they're Ultramarines, but there is an army paint and you can change stuff around. We won't spend too much time on the tutorial battle because most cases, if you're watching this, you've probably been playing a lot of Total War. So all this stuff is pretty much second nature for you. I mean, if you know how to play a Total War game, you're pretty much good to go. If you're new, this will probably be the best way to start off. And even then, download Warhammer free, try the Lost God, and there you go, right? So let's move on to the bigger aspects. So before anything, when you jump into the Taste of Campaign, you actually get to check out the Army Painter. And it's been said by Creative Assembly that this is a basic version of it, so I'm not sure if anything's going to change around. I'm assuming so, because there's a lot of Space Marine chapters which can be quartered and even halved in terms of paint style, and I'm hoping that's going to be the case. You'll be able to pick a name for your own chapter, because you will be able to create a chapter. And that is absolutely awesome. It's quite thorough, because you can go with a short name, a medium name, or even a long name, which I very, very much like. I did have a few issues here, but that's, again, playing remotely is always a bit of a strange thing. So I'm just going to come up with something very, very basic and then go from there, because there's so much. There's so many different types of names. I imagine they can basically be a few thousand options if you kind of mix and match different words. So that's going to allow you to basically get your power fantasy out. There's also ways to basically just name after official chapters too. So you'll find there, I've seen a few names there. Now, when it comes to the custom chapter color, you've got two bases, which is just like the Ultramarines and the Salamanders, but there's loads of different color options. I imagine that this has to be cleaned out a little bit just to kind of go through it, but all the paints that you're looking for, like Kiss of Flesh or Imperial Fist Yellow, they're all there. You can work around it without any issue whatsoever. It looks great. It looks great. The tinting is awesome. And I imagine that this is going to also affect the other factions too. At least I hope so. You can also go with picking your emblem too, which, I mean, you're going to start noticing, right? I started seeing like certain pinks and stuff. I'm like, well, maybe go for the classic. Primaris Emperor's Children, right? That's it's pretty cursed. I am very much hoping that this gets expanded upon so I can start doing some better edits and changing some, like, you know, different pauldron colors and the rest, just to, well, I want to make my soul drinkers, right? It'd be much better if there was a search function for the paint, because that would just make it a lot easier. What I have noticed is not a lot of the metallics are there. At least I was talking to some other creators and they couldn't find too many themselves. It's a very healthy option of paint, so if you're looking to make something really cool, I feel like you're going to have your chapter dreams come true. There are multi-layers for the emblems also, so I guess you're going to be able to move quite a bit, because, you know, you want emblems on the knee pads and in different locations depending on the chapter style, because some of them have them in weird locations depending on the, well, chapter type. I think this is a good way forward, because let's be honest, while Total War is going to have likely a lot of DLCs introducing a lot of different canon playable factions and the rest, there have been some chapters that have kind of faded away into oblivion, haven't really been mentioned by Games Workshop in ages, or, well, the best part about Warhammer in some cases is creating your own custom chapter, your own custom hive world, and all the rest. So again, very much hoping that this isn't just for the Space Marines. I'm actually quite sad that we didn't get this for Warhammer 3. You know, it's something that it was kind of like rumored that it was going to be a thing, but never happened. But it makes sense to reintroduce this. It's a long missing feature from Total War as a whole. Now, there is a lot more, and there is another cinematic, so there will be little breaks, don't worry. Again, if you want to miss them, it's in the timestamps.
War rages in the Talos Stars subsector. A critical astropathic relay station has fallen to the Orc Scourge. We, the Adeptus Astartes, are inbound. Our mission, to retake the station and purge the Xenos threat. Suffer not the alien to live.
Entering orbit. Orc fleet detected. Taking damage. Retaliating. Targeting Lance batteries. Enemy fleet destroyed. Proceeding with bombardment protocols. Awaiting further instruction.
Strike Force is primed for deployment. Our battle brothers are ready to make planetfall. The objectives are clear and verified. Slay the Orc filth and capture the relay station. For the Emperor.
So this is our first proper look at the campaign for Total War Warhammer 40,000. As you can imagine, it is limited at the moment, so I can't go into different planets and stuff, but we can see them. There's something also very horrendously cursed about seeing a Loyalist Emperor's Children battle barge floating up there to support. But yes, we've got quite a big planet here. There are other planets that I can see if I zoom out, and I will be zooming out at some point, don't worry. Yeah, I mean, this It looks very alien from someone who's played a lot of Total War. I've been playing since Rome 1. We've never really had to deal with different planets before. But we're still seeing the usual provinces and regions and the rest, and it looks like all of the construction is kind of small at the moment from what I can see. It's all, well, one building construction, but we can see building lines and the rest. I imagine that stuff gets shown later on once things expand. Again, this is alpha gameplay, so we might not see everything that they've got planned unless it's just going to be a bit smaller overall. It's cool to see, and we don't really get too much information regarding the buildings and the rest. It's just very early, you know, requisition. There is some basic stuff just to get extra resources. You can build up a full army, and you can start recruiting new armies too. As you progress, you'll be able to get more units, and as you can see here, you know, I can get access to some fleet vehicles, some forces. This is all from the fleet, I imagine, coming straight from the battle barge. And the process of this is just, you know, build up a new army. You'll see the strike force there. It takes a while for them to recruit, but recruitment's kind of different because they're already there. I can recruit into the army. Now, what's really cool about this is that there's already stuff around the area. With this, there is a, well, function that I can pick up a half-destroyed Land Raider and then bring it into my forces. So technically, yeah, we still have some form of firstborn troops, you know. It's a bit of a weird one, especially as Games Workshop just decided to squat most of the range, but I believe that the Land Raider remains just fine. But yeah, the idea here is to go and fight the orcs, and there are a few different areas now. Before anything, the campaign map, as far as I'm aware, this might be the campaign map. We don't actually know anything just yet. There was no brief with Creative Assembly prior. All I know is I clicked something and I saw a bunch of different planets, and now I'm really excited because, oh my god, stuff like this just makes my mouth water. It's obviously a little bit of a solar system, very small sector, but in the future he's hoping for a really grand campaign with as much of the galaxy as possible, as I imagine that things will expand as the game continues. The Armageddon subsector is very well known for orcs at the moment, and a few chaos things, so I'm hoping that there's a chaos thing in the future, but the most important thing is going from there. Now, there are edicts still, so provincial edicts and the rest. That's cool, because it's nice to see stuff basically remain. It just looks a bit strange until you get used to the new UI. For those of you who were playing Three Kingdoms after playing a lot of Warhammer, you might have gotten that confusion too, because with these games, they evolve, they change art style, UI, it's all going to be different, but it's still going to be very much the same. There is stuff like Imperium Reputation, which looks like a bit of a fame meter. We're going to have to do deep dives on individual mechanics in future videos. I just want to talk about the very basic stuff at the moment, because the biggest questions I've had since this game got announced is this a Total War? And in all fairness, I've always kind of been thinking about the same way. Is this going to feel like a Total War? So far, so good, even in this early state, and of course this is not a review, this is just my literal first impressions of this. I will admit I did spend a decent amount of time here, because this is the future, I guess. Well, in the literal sense of the words, it looks like we're going to be getting quite a bit. There seems to be like provincial governors that we're going to be getting some bonuses from. I have to do a deep dive and just like really dissect all this footage, because I have like 44 gigabytes worth of footage, which is obviously not all going to be shown in this video. But yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of cool. The objective here is just to fight our way to the orcs. They're in a camp for Theta. I have a lot to play around with. I can't seem to control the battle barge, but the battle barge is kind of like the effects showing up. And a lot of the battles there, you can't do anything about. So you're going to end the battle and you're going to auto-resolve. This is forced auto-resolve here, which I'm not really too keen on, but they, I guess, wanted to showcase just the basics of recruitment, getting your armies up and running, some unit losses and the rest. You do have a decent amount of troops, by the way, so you've got like aggressors and the rest, which we will talk about units later down the line, don't you worry. I have a decent amount of footage of all of them, I think. There is just a lot of units, but the idea here is just kind of see where I can go. The auto-resolve, I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed. I really wanted to fight it, but it looks like it was going to be way too easy for me anyway, because you can see from like the balance of power, which is going to take a while to kind of get used to. It's like a morale basis. The idea here is I'm going to recruit some troops, have a little bit of fun, and see what I can get over there, whilst also pushing myself up to Theta, which that's going to be a big play-through battle, that's perfectly fine. Well, a medium-sized battle, Creative Assembly called it, which is kind of cool, considering what they called a medium-sized battle to be relatively large in terms of scale. I do feel like we're going to have quite a decent amount of entities on the field. The Second Order Resolve killed a bunch of units, and I think that's scripted in. So that was a bit disappointing, and you can stay back and recruit, so that's what I did. I just decided, you know, I'm going to recruit some troops, kind of get through the turn times. It does look like there's other factions throughout the campaign map too, because you are able to see like Orc logos and just a few Eldar ones too. I really wish that we could see some Eldar troops. Honestly, I'm really, really curious, because I imagine that those are going to be quite interesting to animate. And yeah, you can combine your forces. Literally, it's just like move them up once they're ready and combine them together to make the force that you need. I don't imagine that you can have reinforcements just yet, because that's usually something for later down the line. But I wanted an extra troop of intercessors, and I did want another repulsor, because those are kind of cool, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the Space Marine tanks, even the Primaris ones are quite interesting. I know some people aren't too keen on the Primaris lately because of the changes that have come in, but I do feel like it was a long time coming. So yeah, just moving my forces that way, and there is a battle, a very large one at that, where there is a fair amount of different enemies. There's Knobs, Mega Knobs, Storm Boys, Shooter Boys. Oh god, there's just so many units, and I feel like we're going to be seeing a very fair chunk of the roster from the beginning, unlike, say, for what happened with Warhammer 1s, 2, and 3, where we had to rely on DLCs to fill that up. I imagine there's still going to be DLCs, but there's still a fair amount that I've been able to see throughout the battle. Alright, so a custom paint job showing up in one of these battle cinematics is something I was just not expecting. I'm not sure if Creative Assembly were listening in when I was playing this, but I very audibly gasped, because it was something that you kind of expect, but sometimes doesn't show up. And I'm not talking about just Total War games, I'm talking in general. But yeah, we've got an army. All the controls are the same, by the way, so K just takes off the EUI and the rest, and you can see troops kind of well positioned even when there's like craters and stuff. There are some cases where the units will look a bit odd, just like in positioning or moving over terrain, but yeah, dude, I see no complaints over here. These troops look phenomenal. The idea here is this is a medium-sized battle, and as they've said before, you come into battles and the fighting has already started. This is actually really, really cool to see and actually experience myself. The Imperial Guard are already fighting with the Orcs. It's not our job to rescue the Imperial Guard. In fact, they're going to hold down the Orcs for a little bit of time, and then they're going to turn their attentions to me because, you know, fightiness and the rest. I like the idea of this. It's really themed. I'd love to know more. Honestly, I'd really like to sit down with some devs and just kind of ask what triggers that, what's the mentality behind that, and the rest, right? The only thing that I've not really been too keen on when it comes to battles is that the deployment lines aren't very noticeable. I mean, you can see them here. Keep in mind that I was playing from a remote PC, so it wasn't the best in terms of visual on the way back. Like, this looks so much better than what I was seeing when I was recording. So it's good to be able to like review this footage and see it in a very, very high quality. Your army starts off small and you do have some reserves. I believe they were some Terminators, some Aggressors, and the rest. But overall, I think the army performed pretty well. Combat-wise, the battle maps feel pretty damn large. Keep in mind that the enemy is already halfway through and they're very close to me, and still there is quite a distance. I do obviously have tanks and the rest firing and they're taking some time to get in there, but I feel like you are getting a very good visual on scale. Units move around pretty well. I'm actually kind of impressed with how the movement of the troops were, especially as, you know, they can fire as they're moving. That's something that Total War Warhammer has kind of struggled with sometimes, where it doesn't look too natural, especially with arrow fire. Moving in the artillery pieces like the Land Raider and the rest, yeah, it's great. I haven't seen any issues like the impulsors and the rest. And you can see that there is a lot And I mean a lot of orcs on the screen. So you're dealing with a small force that was at the front, and then there is a massive force coming in with a Gargant, with, I think there were some killer cans. Overall, visually, I think gunplay seems pretty good. It was a really weird thing to see, because obviously you can't really imagine it, right? In a sense, it's kind of odd. I mean this in a good way, because obviously this is such a drastic change to the standard Total War format. I think a few people were, including myself, were quite worried. But you can see that you got some pretty good range there coming out from the Land Raider. Some other troops are being able to fire. When enemies get closer, if they've got secondary and tertiary weapons, they will also fire those. Enemies are moving around quite well. They are splitting up. I feel like it's kind of scripted in a little sense, but like not too badly. It's more just like getting everything up to where it needs to be, because I've played this battle a few times and it looks like they had the same response. Maybe it's because my playstyle was very much the same. I'm not sure if other creators will have different ideas and different just interactions with the enemy. I really like seeing the enemies move around quite a bit. Honestly, the Storm Boys jumping in, it felt really, really natural. There's something that jetpacks need to be done quite well. Orc trucks there was a shot, and it shows up on screen, where it loses control and it's going to go smash into a building, but it explodes right before then. That's something that has been stated by Creative Assembly. It's actually expected. Just vehicles can get so damaged that they'll actually lose control. That's so cool. Obviously, there's certain weapons that are better than others when it comes to dealing with vehicles. So you'll want to use Hellblasters to knock out a tank, whilst your basic intercessors are focusing on the normal shooter boys or slugger boys. Then you've got your big stuff like the Land Raider, which is kind of like all over the place. Same thing with the Dreadnoughts. You do have a bunch of effects on the side, by the way. These are like certain buffs that you can use. You've also got access to like some bombardments. I'm imagining that this is going to be very different to every faction. Well, it's not even an educated guess. It's something that just makes sense, because this kind of is like the effects that you get with the Warhammer 3 races, right? But with extra support, like the Black Orcs, with the Dark Elves, and the rest. You do have some abilities, like you've been able to see an ability coming up from my Librarian, so there is a bit of a Mind Blast. There are loads of enemies coming all over the place. Moving around is very important. At this point, I was just trying to see what the AI would do, because one of the biggest fears that I had with this was the AI, right? Battle AI with a brand new engine. You want to see how they perform. And it seems that they were actually trying to surround as much as they could. But it didn't feel like the Warhammer 3 surround, you know what I mean? Where they'll just try to open up as far as they can just to kind of surround, where it just looks kind of goofy. Here they were pushing in, they found the way to get in, and they would smash their way through. I had some bombing runs coming in, which did make things a lot easier, and then some big hits on that Mega Gargant, because it's a very scary boy. I always imagined this, like I've always talked about a Total War 40k. I've always talked about a Total War 40k, and now that I'm seeing it in person, I'm really excited for the potential future of this. That Gargant's going down fast too, which makes me very, very happy. The same thing is just like taking down their morale as fast as possible. Eventually they're going to break, but there's so many, and the explosions are great. It's really weird that it's actually happening, right? It's really weird in the best way possible, but it's still really weird to see. So the battle itself isn't too long. I imagine that it was in journalist mode, so, you know, the usual tabloids will be able to do it without complaining, because Total War battles can get a little bit weird, especially when it's a brand new format. And this one isn't the best one that I've done. I'm saving that for a future video. The idea here was just to kind of see how units would work, and I didn't really summon in the Terminators until pretty much the last moment, but it was so good seeing so many orc bodies on the ground. And when you move back your artillery pieces, you know, your tanks and the rest, they're firing as they're moving. Just the turret's moving around. So it's moving to one direction, but the turret is firing in the other. That's stuff that we want, you know, that's stuff that we generally didn't see in Total War games, even where it would have been appropriate. So it's really good to see. Yeah, like, I have no complaints. I feel overall the battles feel quite fluid, and there could have been some better ways for me to handle this fight, but I was just kind of like looking at where I can go, what I can do. It's nice. It's nice. I know that sounds weird for me to say, but I was looking at this purely on, would I enjoy this? Would this be my future title as a Total War content creator? And so far, it's looking fairly positive. Obviously, we're going to have to see for the other stuff, you know, Eldar, the Guard, how everything looks. But yeah, I mean, seeing Terminators, bright pink Terminators at that, moving forward and firing, just brings a lot of joy. A lot of joy. I would have liked to see better, like, end game screens, you know, just looking at the how many units things killed and the rest, you know, like what we're kind of used to in Warhammer 3. But I imagine that that's still work in progress. And I imagine a lot of stuff is still work in progress, although very fluid.
The orcs must die, whatever the cost! For the Emperor!
I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, as this has taken quite a lot of time to record, as you can imagine. I'm not showcasing the length or the load times because since it's a remote thing, connection issues did come up and it actually made the stuff last longer to actually sync up. So that's just what happens with these types of events. It would have been better, I guess, inside CA, but they're dealing with so many things, right? So this is the final battle. This is what they call the big battle, and we get to check up some units there. Freaking Sternguard veterans showed up in the trailer too, which was just, well, the cinematic, which was awesome. Assault Intercessors, I am so happy to see. And as you might see, the Intercessors themselves will also be in the 11th edition format, right? So they've actually got like mixed stuff in terms of equipment because that's how it's being represented now. You know, the Primaris are running out of equipment, so they're fielding it with older Mark tiers and stuff, and I love that so freaking much. The only problem here is they are ultramarine colors rather than the color system that I picked out, which is objectively better, but you know, that's how it goes. So this is another battle. This is the final battle that we had access to in this build. Once again, the Imperial Guard are up and front there, fighting off some orcs. There's a bunch of infantry squads there, which is really, really cool, and like big rosters of like groups of 100. And the orcs, by the way, the shooter boys, are in squads of 100 too, which is absolutely wild. They're already in active combat. When the battle starts, I'm there to support, and then eventually they'll get wiped out because they're basic guardsmen. Yeah, I mean, again, super, super cool, man. This is going to, like, you can see the units up close and personal. I am just so happy about this. It's really cool to see. So I'm going to give you my perspective now, my general thoughts after playing, and this is coming from two aspects, right? This is coming from a long-standing Warhammer fan who has been in the hobby for 30 years now. I started when I was 4 years old, painting my very first Space Marines, and also, not only that, but a Total War content creator, someone who's been here for a fair amount of time, who has played a lot of Total Wars in the past before I started making content, and I've been making a lot of content on the games since I kind of just started off. Yeah, man, I'm pretty excited. Obviously, this is still an early build, so things could be different, but I feel fairly confident that the new engine, yeah, I feel like it feels pretty good, which, you know, is surprising but also reassuring. We needed a new engine for quite some time now. I'm not saying jump into like a pre-order. I don't think they're doing pre-orders, which they'll probably do later down the line. I'm saying keep your ears out. I think that's the most important way. I will always criticize Creative Assembly where it needs to be criticized, and I will also praise them when they need to be praised. And I feel like this is a good format going forward. 40k looks like it has a lot of potential, and it's great to see when you start fielding those units, when you start seeing that damage output. I do wish I had more time with the build. It wasn't enough time for me to get all the footage I would have wanted or all the just general looks, because I'm someone who likes to like play stuff very autistically, and I will go through the same battle over and over if I have to. Now, the build wasn't perfect. There were visual issues that were popping up every now and then, but that's expected from a alpha playthrough. But it felt better than Warhammer 3 in that regard. I didn't have a lot of red flags, and obviously this is very, very early. There were red flags kind of popping up a little bit in Warhammer 3, but the rose-tinted goggles were coming in because the survival battles and the rest, and I guess I was just kind of hoping for the best for Warhammer 3. Whereas here, I was looking for issues. I was seeing, oh yeah, you know, stuff kind of being a bit weird in terms of movement and the rest, but I don't think that that's going to be a problem given how stuff has really showcased differently. If you go back to like earlier footage that CA have released, I didn't see the same problems coming up with some of the guardsmen just kind of like clipping through their guns too much. So it's looking promising. If this is to be my future as a content creator, I feel a lot more confident now that I've been able to play it. I don't feel like I have a lot of fear. I could be proven wrong, but so far everything looks good. Again, some UI stuff I'd love to see changed. There's something going on with like games lately where you can like edit the UI, and I'm hoping that's something that we could see. I kept struggling looking down because I'm so used to the UI, like the minimap being at the top. So I kept going like, where is it, you know? Certain icons could be better colored. It's like the whole thing of the faction effects on the side, or even like the abilities for the librarian could be a bit more standout-ish, because it'll be easier for people to kind of notice. But that stuff, I imagine, since it's not really colored in, is probably like work in progress. They didn't really say what is still subject to change, but I imagine with an alpha build, it's a lot of stuff to change. So yeah, that's just a matter of time. All right, so I'm going to leave you guys here because I've been speaking enough, as you can imagine, and I've got a few more videos on the pipeline for this because I have so much footage, and even though I was complaining about not having enough, believe me, I always like to just get as much as I can. I'm going to let you guys hear the game a little bit because I've literally just been talking over it. It's just something that I like to do because it's safer, just in case like when the render happens, I don't have like audio being blasted all over the place and the rest. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. If you have any specific questions, I could do like a bit of a Q&A video to answer your questions about this. Just put like question in capitals and it'll be easier for me to find. And I'll try my best. Keep in mind that I've only been able to play these 3 battles a number of times. I've not been able to check out like other races, as much as it pains me, because I'm dying to see how the Eldar play. I like Xenos factions a lot. You guys know I'm a big Tau fan. Here's hoping it won't be too long until we get to see Tau and the rest. But yeah, and it would have been cool to use some orcs, because clearly there's a lot of orcs available. It would have been cool just to like see how they work. I'm still kind of getting used to the new format, as I've said, but I feel pretty confident. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye!
There is only war.
Stand firm. Your defenses are limited.
Neutral link uncompromised.
Enemy fire! Emperor damned scum!
Target lock acquired. Fire.
Enemy targets revealed.
War-tempered and ready. For the Emperor! Time to finish this! They press us. Redouble your efforts.
They are broken.
Every kill advances our cause. Watch out, brothers. Ignore those cowards. Fight on. For the Emperor! We're not fighters. We make our stand here, brothers. Under fire, brothers. This enemy is resilient.